Weifenbach, Roberts, Stroman, Armstrong, Jones,
Here.
Lehman, Solomon, Evans, Drew. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. And now we'll have the invocation by Pastor Brad Clausen, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Father, we honor you as creator of all things. You have only our best in mind, and we know that you would desire that we would live in peace and in hope, while finding prosperity that keeps us humble and thriving in body, mind, and soul. You have chosen these men and women to guide this city to be a place of safety, a place of well-being, a place to thrive. We are not so foolish as to think that we can do this without you. So we ask you to help us and them to stand for what is right and good, to give grace and compassion where needed, and to make this city, Rapid City, a place where right living will grow and grow, evil will diminish. Father, we ask that you let justice, peace, and joy roll down like the river, and truth and integrity and virtue grow like a grapevine that yields its fruit daily, for you are the God of power and might, wisdom and justice. Through you and those who follow you, authority rightly administered, laws enacted, judgment and decreed, and justice can be done. Please pour out your Spirit upon these leaders and help them find the truth of your word and apply it to the governance of our lives. Help them to be men and women of integrity, that they may govern fairly and do what is right, that they will be merciful and unselfish and sensitive to people's needs, and that they will be humble, recognizing that we all need to give an account. Let wisdom and knowledge be pleasant to them and something that they diligently seek. Let discretion preserve them and understanding keep them and deliver them from evil and evil influence. Cut off that which will destroy harmony and peace, but enable their decisions, that we may lead quiet and peaceful lives in all godliness and honesty. Bring to light hidden agendas that will cause the destruction of peace and prosperity of the city, and keep us recognizing your grace and mercy over this region. Help us to make right the wrongs of history, heal old wounds, and by all that live here, do right. I pray that you will protect, encourage, and reward these leaders for the sacrifices they make to serve the people of Rapid City. And finally, Father, bless and protect their families, giving them grace, mercy, protection, and provision. For they have sacrificed much in allowing the members of their family, these members of their family, to serve us. In all this, we give you glory and honor, for you are good and just in all that you do and say, and we ask you to cover us in all that we do and say, in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Pledge allegiance.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Thank you, everyone. And now next on the agenda, we have the adoption of the agenda. This is a time, okay, we have a motion from Darla Drew to adopt the agenda as written, and a second by Laura Armstrong. All in favor of the adoption of the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Motion carries. Now on the agenda, we have a presentation from Ward 2 Councilmember Richie Nordstrom. And take it away, Mr. Nordstrom.
It's coming. First of all, Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Mayor and City Council members. I thank you for allowing me to participate in the National League of Cities Summit last November. Because of a lot of issues having to do around copyright issues, I can't share a whole lot of information with you publicly, but I am putting together a booklet that I'll be able to share with you. So you'll be able to see a lot more in detail. What I'm going to give you tonight is more or less a synopsis of the summit. And one of the other things that I noticed at this summit is that everything was more or less kind of like routine business, a lot of other things that just kind of rolled along. And then comparing that with the congressional conference that we just did here last week, the enthusiasm level has really risen there in the National League of Cities. So I'm really looking forward to the outcome of that conference. So the abbreviated version I'm going to give you tonight about the conference, these are the courses that I took at the summit. I'm going to put this booklet that I'm preparing for you into chapters or sessions that I took at the summit last November. The leadership course was very interesting. They gave us a book to review, and the speaker talked a lot about what it is to do with resiliency in leadership. And they've got a book out there that it has to do with this course that we followed along. And I thought it was very interesting in all of the things that they were trying to undertake and educate us that participated in the summit. Very briefly, what it amounted to was that there's a lot of challenges in front of us, but they've also got opportunities with each challenge. The primary concern was the backlogs that are taken on by in our case, the City Council, and we're not the only ones that are experiencing issues like this, like what we are. So we're in quite a club of municipalities that are dealing with comparable issues. And the other challenge that we're facing is the services that we respond to we're reacting to issues. Well, they're coming up with something in the next chapter called analytics, and it has to do with something I'm just learning a little bit more about, and it primarily focuses on how to resolve issues before we get it. It's a proactive position that we can undertake. It's not going to be easy, it's not going to be simple, but some of the other cities that are doing this have been able to accomplish a lot of things by using analytics in their governance of their entities. The other challenge that they have is and it's true for us too, is that we go through a lot of decisions that we make time and again, and some of them come back over and over. With analytics on here, we get the chance to take a look at that data and put it in priorities, and we'll be able to hopefully make some progress. It's not going to be real quick overnight fix either. So analytics is something that was really of interest for me, so I need to study up on that a little bit more. The next chapter has to do with working with planning and working with our planning staff. And you'll be seeing a lot of information coming out on that in that booklet that I'm preparing for you. And part of that had to do with transportation. And that's particular of interest for me is the other alternative modes for transportation. And we do have a little bit of experience here in Rapid City with the TAP program. And I'm sure we'll be seeing some more of that even as we come up on the end of this month, because of the ARP, that's the acronym that's coming out right now for the American Rescue Plan. The next area of interest that I took a course in was creating consensus in a challenging environment. They give us several things to consider and lots of areas to tackle. And they gave us some suggestions, some ideas, and so on. And in the booklet, it'll get much more detail about how we can possibly take a look at creating better consensus. Next chapter has to do with real council meeting. Now, that doesn't mean like a real council meeting. This has to do with race, equity, and leadership. That's what the real acronym stands for. And we got to learn a little bit about the equality that, and especially diversity within our different communities. And a lot of the other communities were able to give us information on how they deal with the diversity issues that they are facing. They are recommending that we invest in the people, invest in the place as well, and then create a new structure to support, scale, and then invest in our people and places. And they are urging us to take a long-term look at our issues, but the National League of Cities is working on what we can do to act now. The next chapter has to do with a new economic reality. The place is the key for economic strength. Unique is a key to economic longevity. Social connections are also a key to economic resilience. The final chapter has to do with the infrastructure. I just want to report to you that nationwide, and we're probably experiencing some numbers that are very close to this, is that about 30% of our workforce is retiring within the next 3 to 5 years. About a third of the United States is also limited on their budget restraints. And they are also experiencing a lot of lack of training in that area as well. So we'll probably get some more information on training and how to deal with budget restraints. 26% of the workforce is scheduled for busy training, so we can anticipate some more training in that area so we can get a handle on all of the issues that are in front of us and give us some opportunities on that, challenges. And the last item I have here is that 37% of the hiring that we're doing right now are needed in the skilled trades. We're starting to see some of that happening here with even Rapid City. And the one other slide that I would like to show you very briefly is this is the leadership of National League of Cities. Joe is was our past president, and then when the summit was over with, then we handed over the reins to Kathy Manus. She is now the president of the National League of Cities. Next year will be Vince Williams who will be taking over the reins, because each term is about 1 year long, and the next summit will be in November in Salt Lake City. So if you have an opportunity, I would encourage you to be able to get to that summit. A lot of good things, a lot of interesting things that can come up with that. And I apologize that I can't give you all of this information, but because of the copyright issues that we have to contend with, That's all the available information I can share at this time. Stand by, more is coming. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I have a
Richie?
question for Richie.
Darla Drew has a question for you.
Thank you for the presentation, Richie.
Yes.
I'd like to know if there are any webinars that are offered by the NLC, like on their REAL program or the infrastructure issues. Those are things I'd like to know more about what they're doing nationally. So are there any such resources out there?
I'll give you a sample of what they show up on their webpage, on the National League of Cities webpage. And stand by, it's coming up. And this gives you a sample of all the courses that are available. And again, because of the copyright issues, I can't show you too much more to the public, but by all means, get onto the National League of Cities website, and there's a ton of courses that you can take. There is a webinar that I plan on taking up later this month that has to do with homeless, and it just got registered, and I don't know all the details on it just yet, but it looks very interesting. I've been talking to the police department, specifically Chief Hedrick, to talk about what is happening with homeless. So that's an example, and then there are other webinars. It seems like I get about one a week on
Okay.
a webinar. So if you'd like that information, and I get you signed up for that, absolutely.
Well, we operate so much in a silo, you know, when we're
Agreed.
making these decisions for city. It'd really be nice to know what other cities are doing. And are these no-cost webinars?
Correct, yep.
Okay.
Now, and I qualified that, some of them are out of their university. And when it gets into the university, then it gets it to be a fee for that.
Okay.
And there is some courses that I took out of the university, out of this list that I showed you, that are fee for service. And so you folks graciously gave me the investment that I could use to take those courses. And hopefully that report, when I get it back to you in the booklet form, will create some more questions.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Richie. And for clarification, the copyright issues Mr. Nordstrom's talking about are not with talking about these issues here in this meeting or sharing this information with his colleagues. It's because we're on YouTube. And if he puts up slides, images that are copyrighted, there are algorithms that can catch us into that trap, and then our IT director, Jim Gilbert, still upset over us paying out $5,000 several years ago because we put a poem up on a slide in a meeting. So anyway, Richie's just being careful. Thank you, Richie, for that. Now, next on the agenda is general public comment, a time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at this meeting on any issue not on the agenda, except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the council members present. And I have a couple of general public comment forms, one from Chuck Henry.
Thank you, Mayor. I see our group is here again, defying the rules that you set down for city government buildings for wearing masks. There's signs all over. So I better not hear them call the mayor and city council lawlessness. And if you don't like what the mayor and the city council does, run for office. They're coming up to their end of their terms. And to the public works director, we need these sidewalks cleaned in front of the businesses and houses that don't do that. It is really slippery out there, and people can get hurt. And I don't think the businesses and homeowners know that if a person gets hurt in front of their house because they didn't clean their sidewalk or a business, they're liable for the injuries. Thank you.
Thank you. And next is Scott McKinley.
Thank you very much for letting me speak for just a minute. And first thing I want to talk about is vote appreciation, specifically on those masks. God bless every one of you people that supported that mask mandate and threw it down the stool, especially you, Mayor Ellender. We didn't think you'd turn and vote that way. And you cannot believe how many people really appreciated that vote from you. Really, they did. And so for the rest of it, you supported that that mask mandate to go away. That was great. It was great for the community. And, you know, some of those cities need to follow us. I think being in a silo is pretty good because this city does some things that's really, really good. And I just wonder if we're taking our information to those city meetings that Mr. Nordstrom was talking about. So that being said, and to follow up on that right quick, like as a swim center, I want to thank you for relaxing those regulations you've got at the swim center. That it's really makes it a lot easier for us that go to there all the time. It's a great place to go. So we thank you for that. That lady that runs that program does a fantastic job. And then the last thing, home rule. You know, I don't know much about home rule. I hear a lot about it, and nobody really likes that much. And so I don't have a comment on it, but I would ask a question. I don't know if you can give me an answer. If you can't, just say no. The current form of government seems to work pretty good here in Rapid City. I don't know why you change it, but my question is it getting closer? I mean, to go to home rule, would it get closer to our Constitution or farther away? I just find that to be a great guideline. And if it's going towards that Constitution, then maybe that's a good idea. But if it's not, then why would we do that? So I thank you very much for that time to speak, and thank you very much.
Thank you. Connie Fennenga.
Richie, this is a question for you on your presentation. What did REAL stand for? Real, equity, what did the A stand for?
If I may.
Nordstrom.
Race. Race is the R.
Race, equity.
Yep.
What's
equity,
the A stand for?
And
Leadership.
leadership.
Okay, gotcha. I thank you
Yep.
so much.
Yep. You're welcome.
Okay, and that'll bring an end to the general public comment. And now on to non-public hearing items, items 1 through 44. We'll open public comment on this. We have one speaker request on item 35 from Chuck Henry.
Come on, click. Just one question. When they do the ADA and the next conform to the ADA rules on the next intersection that you're approving tonight, are they going to activate those buttons or leave them like they did on the East Boulevard project in St. Joe and Maine? They have not been connected. They are still covered. So that area does is ADA not compliant? Since the buttons are there, but they're covered and not working, they got to get those working. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and that'll close that public comment period. And now into consent items 1 through 36. Would the council like to remove any of these items? Anyone at all? Darla Drew.
Item 5 and item 20. Please.
Okay, item 5 and 20. Anyone else? Okay, we have motion for approval. Who said that?
Pat.
Pat Jones. Approval of the consent items with the exception of 5 and 20. Was there a second? Second from Greg Stroman. All in favor of approval of consent, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 5, approve fiscal year 2021 Rapid City Arts Council funding recommendations for community investments. Darla Drew.
Thank you, Mayor. I've had some questions on this because it looks like the arts subsidy was getting a boost. And what happened was all the departments were cut last year because of COVID, and we didn't know what the sales tax would look like. So they were reduced to about $75,000. They decided to accept that and made the best of it. Now this year it's going back to what it was previously, around $100,000. It supports about 12 organizations. Some of the free things that you can see are municipal band, ranger band. We're the only city with a marching band in western South Dakota anymore. So I think that that's an important thing that we can loan to parades and things like that. And it also helps our high schoolers stay in shape during the summertime with their instruments. Also, this year we've done I noticed a different thing was approved. The Cave Collective was also included. It's a younger group of people that are doing really innovative things in the arts, and they have a new location down at what was at AB's Feed and Seed. There used to be Racing Magpie was there, but now the Cave Collective is there. And I love seeing these new groups get a little bit of a boost too, because they're really doing innovative projects down there and hope to do concerts. They do videos, they do streaming right now of a lot of their concerts, and they go anywhere to get this footage, whether it's Hot Springs, Rapid City, Spearfish, just to keep their core group engaged. So actually getting the COVID shut down right away when they kind of just got started 3 years ago was tough, but they just pivoted and kept on going. And so this summer they have a lot of concerts, film festivals, poetry, art competitions, those kinds of things going on. And I'm really glad to see that kind of liveliness and vitality in the arts in Rapid City. So I want to thank the Rapid City Arts Council for making these recommendations for us, and I, of course, wholeheartedly support this subsidy. Thank you.
Bill Evans.
I just wanted to add to Darla's comments about the Ranger Band. For those who don't know, the Ranger Band is named such because it was formed as an advertising vehicle for the Range Days Rodeo, which is now the Central States Fair. And that's where that name came from about 80 years ago. And they were bussed around the hills and western South Dakota, and they even at one time went, I think, as far away as Mitchell, to provide Rapid City's bit of advertising for our tourist destination. And they still, although they're not nearly as far-reaching as they used to be because of all the other media that we have now and the vehicles for doing that, they still provide a Rapid City's presence in all of the Hills Rodeos, the Days of 76, the Black Hills Roundup and all that. And that's really their purpose, to see a bunch of fresh-faced Rapid City kids marching down sounding fabulous, because they're always great players, because that's sort of our tradition here. But I think, talk about bang for the buck for this minuscule amount of money that we provide them with every year, and the visibility they provide for the city is pretty much unmatched. So I just wanted to send that out there so people know what that is. Thank you.
Ron Weifenbach.
Bill, I just need to say one thing. My son, while doing that one summer, he had the bass drum and marching around like that. He lost about 30 pounds that summer, which was really good. So thank you.
Ron Weifenbach, I think is going to volunteer to carry the bass drum this summer.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ron.
It's better than the Nutrisystem thing.
I think Darla just said I was fat.
Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate Mr. Evans' little history lesson, because I sat on his council when they were trying to actually defund that Ranger Band. And with that many years of history, and I'm not an arts guy. I don't understand all of it. I have appreciation for it to the level that I can, but I do know that there are several people in our community that do have a love of the arts, and there's, if you want to get the people at the school system or whatever to scream, just tell them you're going to take away the funding for the orchestra or the band or whatever. And I sat through councils that, we looked at bringing the symphony orchestra on these types of things. But one of the things that I've always been curious about, and I'm going to encourage my colleagues here to challenge themselves. The arts department and brings a lot of, I know, like you'd mentioned, tourism funding to the community. So, but yet they receive no dollars from the BB&B taxes and stuff like that. And I think that's because of the way the state has set up that tax, where it goes to one location, mainly to the Civic Center, mainly to the economic arm of our industry, but yet they've never ever looked to stop to think all these little organizations in our community that are bringing people to town on a daily, weekly basis in these little arts places. And even if you don't have any appreciation for art, I challenge you as the people in the audience to go out, check these places out. They're really cool after you start to understand some of the things they do. But what they do, like bring people to our community, but yet, unfortunately, we fund them through, the general fund or whatever. And I think they really needs to become a time where the conversation has to be had is how do they fit into that puzzle of the tourism part, the marketing arm of our community. So I haven't went public with that. Today's the first day I've been public with it. I've had conversation with a couple of the council people about it. But I think it's important to start thinking about that direction and get it off the back of the general fund and get it to where it really belongs and give them the due that they have coming. They really do. And I would argue those numbers with anybody if anybody ever wants to have the challenge. So I appreciate that. And thanks again, Mr. Evans, for the history on the Ranger Band. It's cool. And I'm glad we're not having the opposite conversation of defunding those guys. That got pretty nasty, pretty ugly. Thank you.
Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. I would rather call this an investment, not a subsidy. I feel that we're very strongly that these people return on our investments, so it's not a subsidy. If we can correct the language on that, and I'm not criticizing anybody for it because that's the language that we've been using forever, but if we can train ourselves to think of this as an investment from now on. Thank you.
Lance Lehman.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second by Laura Armstrong. We have a motion on the table to approve item 5. All in favor of that, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 20. Resolution number 2021-019, a resolution supporting a solid waste management grant for Cell 18 berm improvements and litter control netting atop of proposed berm. Darla Drew.
I guess I'd like to direct some questions to our City Planning Department, Public Works.
Public Works Director, go ahead. Dale Tech.
Hi, Dale. When I was reading through this, I'm sorry that I didn't get to this on the working session, but I really think this is a really great thing, and it's about $100,000. Is that the cost of it?
Yes, approximately.
So you're going for a grant on this?
That's correct.
What if you don't get the grant? I mean, this is a netting, guys, that's going to cover this berm and then, keep the trash from getting out and rolling all around our beautiful area. So what happens if you don't get the grant?
The netting will be installed still, so we're just taking advantage of grant funding from the state to fund it. Either way, we're going to be installing the netting.
Okay, and that's probably in your budget, I would say?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, that's great news, because I just thought it was something that was really needed, and if we didn't get the funding, I was hoping you'd say it's still going to happen.
Absolutely.
So, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, litter control's good.
Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. I had a conversation earlier with one of my colleagues. He was asking me about some of the things that are going on at the landfill. And not to get the cart in front of the horse, but I can tell you there's a lot of stuff coming down the pipeline with their comprehensive study that they're going through at the landfill. In 2012, they took an 8% decrease in their service fee for whatever reason. It seemed to be ill-advised at the time it happened, and I don't think they've had an increase of any of the fees in there. We're looking at measures through the comprehensive plan to provide the level of service that the community wants in a more efficient manner. But obviously, I'm assuming at some point there's going to be a conversation to be had on some increases. But I just want to let my colleagues know they are working diligently on looking not only looking at it, coming at it from both ends. Taking efficiencies, making them work to what people want and expect in their services without cutting those services short. And if I'm wrong, the Public Works Director can chime in there. But as we go forward, it's a conversation that needs to be had on a basis that, so that people in the community understand that there's some things that are coming down. There's some needs out there. We talk about the life expectancy of the landfill was one of the questions I got asked. Currently, it's at a 20-year life expectancy. That's what's left out there at this point. There are some options that the Public Works Director and his crew have been looking at that will extend those lives, that are low cost when it comes to actually what it would take to go buy more property and do these types of things. So these are coming down. There's some great people involved in on it. They have a really lively conversations about the stakeholders involved in this and the people that they've hired to do it. There's going to be literature coming about. I think it's Mr. Kuhn?
Yeah,
Dan
Dan
Kuhn.
Kuhn.
In like within the next 30 days, it's going to come forward, and we're going to try to put it together with Darrell Schumacher and present it to the public, present it to the colleagues here, so you guys can get a really good handle on what's going down, because there's some things that we're going to have to address out there. So I just use this moment, since it seems appropriate, to get you guys thinking about it. And I know there's been other colleagues on here that have sat in on the Zoom meetings and stuff like that. So, but if you have questions in the next 30 days, that will be coming forward. So just keep it in mind. It's a good thing. I mean, what I really like about it is they're coming at it from both ends. Not just going out and saying, hey, we need to raise your fees or anything like that. They're going, hey, we're going to build some efficiencies. So thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Bill Evans.
For Mr. Tech, is one of the main things this will accomplish is trapping these single-use plastic bags before they go flying off into space? Is that one of the purposes of this?
Absolutely. That is the single largest scourge of any landfill, are those wind-blown plastics. So that's the purpose of the netting, is to capture that.
And we did receive a bunch of pictures concerning that because of a complaint in the last couple of weeks. It's an enormous problem. A lot of that is still remnants of what happened when we had the big winds 5 or 6 weeks ago, those 85-mile-an-hour winds. I'm still picking those garbage bags out of my trees when I can get to them with a long pole, 40 feet long. It's crazy how one day of that on a garbage collection day can cause all this trouble, and you live with it for weeks and weeks. So anything we can do to stop the plastic bags from leaving where they're supposed to be is going to be a huge problem solver for us. So thank you for doing that. Goodbye.
Okay, we have a motion to approve item 20 by Lance Lehman. A couple seconds, one of them by Laura Armstrong. All in favor of approval of item 20, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. That takes us through consent calendar. Now into non-consent items 37 through 45. I'll open public comment on those items. And we have a speaker request on item 40 from Chuck Henry.
Last time here, I was talking about that Rapid Ride's not ADA friendly. Buses are equipped with the kneeling deal that gets us closer to the ground for people with canes. Other day I saw a lady with crutches, walkers, you name it. Some drivers do use it, some don't. And there's one time in the past that I was getting on the bus and I had to step a foot up and I fell. Same thing, I fell off the bus because they didn't use it. Their safety plan needs to address this problem of drivers not looking ahead and seeing people, elderly people and that have trouble getting on the bus when they got to step a foot from the ground to get on. Another thing I noticed on the safety committee they have, there is not a citizen on that committee. Not one. It's all rapid transit employees. So that's one thing I am upset about. They need to have a citizen that rides the bus that can bring these issues up to get them solved. Thank you.
Thank you. And that'll close the public comment period, and we'll start back on the agenda with item 37, ordinances. First reading of ordinance 6480, an ordinance to clarify provisions related to the Rapid City Regional Airport Board and to expand its membership by adding provisions in Chapter 2.72 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. And this is an item that's half continued from the March 1st meeting. We resolved half of this at that meeting. The question needing resolved tonight is the question relating to the fire service at the Rapid City Regional Airport, and we'll open the bidding. Okay, we have a motion to approve by Darla Drew and a second by Laura Armstrong. We'll go to Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess for my colleagues to understand, this is a $610,000 contract that they have. Mr. Mayor, I guess, can I pose that question to maybe the fire chief?
Absolutely.
So is this a $610,000 contract that's there, and we're equivalent over $70,000?
Mayor?
Yes, Jason Culberson.
The current contract, I believe, in 2021 is $600,620, I believe. Somewhere in that area.
Thank you. I guess I don't find myself necessary to have an ordinance, but I think it's, I mean, I still question motivations, but if Chief is fine with it, I'm fine with it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of comments of tweaks I would love to see made in order to approve this. One of them is a repeat, but one tweak has to do with the fire department, and I think that I'm fine with it going out to competitive bid where the fire department, along with other agencies, can bid. I do think that if it is competitive, that the fire department's bid is competitive, that it should get the preference. I would love to see something in there. Competitive could be 5–10% of anybody else. Two, I'm fine with expanding the board from 5 to 7 members. I think that's great. Obviously, the more the better. I will maintain that my preference is that it remain Rapid City residents that sit on that board. If I could give an analogy, I think it would be kind of like, by allowing people outside of the city to serve on this board, it would be kind of like the South Dakota legislature allowing a couple of folks from North Dakota to sit on a subcommittee and make decisions. And I think we have to respect the integrity of jurisdictions, and obviously borders and those kind of things matter. And in this case, Rapid City is the one who invested in this airport. By all means, if other jurisdictions such as counties or cities or any other regional jurisdictions want to partner with us, then obviously if they are taxing, they should have representation, and I would fully support that. But as it stands, I think what it does by allowing non-Rapid City residents to serve on this board, which is a Rapid City airport, even though it's a regional airport, Rapid City is the one that runs it, I do believe that it diminishes the integrity of what a jurisdiction is. And so if that's not included, I can't get behind it. If that's included in the tweak that the fire department would get a preference for a competitive bid, I could get on board with this. Thank you.
Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. If I may call Ms. Boom up to the podium, please. Tony?
Yes. And council members, I may have accidentally just knocked someone out of the queue. Didn't notice who it was.
It wasn't me. Hi, good evening, Tony. There's two areas, maybe to start with, is the area, and I apologize that I'm going to blindside you a little bit here, but we've had email communications about grant assurances and what this ordinance potentially does to the grant assurances. And And I'll let you answer that question first.
Sure, thank you. As part of our federal grants that we receive each year to do our capital improvements or eligible capital improvements, we receive between $2.2 and $2.5 million a year. With those grants, we do sign a number of assurances, and one of those in particular says that we will not do anything that will give away our rights and powers of control over the airport. It is our opinion that the ordinance, by requiring and mandating that the airport use the Rapid City Fire Department, that's in violation of that grant assurance. We have no qualms with the Rapid City Fire Department. We think they do a fabulous job. We have a great relationship with the folks that are out there. This is just strictly something that we don't think should be mandated in ordinance form.
Thank you, Tony. And then the follow-up comments that I think deserves to be addressed is the enlargement of the board. There's some concern about the representation being outside of the city limits. Could you address that portion of the ordinance as well? I'm comfortable with it because for me this comes down to a taxation without representation, and so that's kind of where I'm at. But anyway, if you can expand on that.
Sure.
Board expansion.
Right now, we do not receive any general fund tax dollars from the City of Rapid City. We have, in my career with the airport, which has been 10 years, at 2 times received funding from the city. The first was a $3.5 million vision funds, which expanded our terminal in 2012. And then a couple years later, when we completely rehabbed the runway, the main runway, we received $150,000 in capital funds. So we are not operated on any tax dollars, local or through the region. We are mandated by those grant assurances and by our certificate from the FAA to be self-sustaining as possible. So we always have to be aware of our rates and charges, our expenses, and we need to make sure that we're charging adequate rates to our tenants and to our users to cover those expenses. So it's not necessarily about a local tax dollar. It's our opinion that because we are growing, in fact, we're going to announce new service again tomorrow, that we serve the entire region. We believe that regional representation is important to this airport and to the City of Rapid City. The way it is written is any of these individuals would go through the same process that City of Rapid City folks do. They apply through the mayor's office. They're approved by this council here, and it would enlarge our board to 7, which, again, the majority rules. So you still would have 5 members on the 7-member board from the City of Rapid City.
And my final comment to both the airport and the fire department is I've had contact with the FAA. I believe her branch manager is her title, Kay, and I apologize, I haven't got her last name, but I had a long communication with her, about 45 minutes. We spent on Zoom, and I was asking her about the issues to do with the grant assurances, the fire department, and the representation and all of those issues. And she could not think of anything that, right off the top of her head, that would require us to do any additional work than what we've done already on this. So, from my understanding, the FAA is okay with this, and they are doing some more research, and I don't anticipate to hear from them anyway. And then lastly, if I may, just thank Chief Cullerson for sticking with us on this because of the concerns that we have. And I, for one, don't believe that we have any major concerns for losing the fire department out there at the airport. Even if it goes out for a bid process, there's ways to work around that. But again, I don't see that happening in our near future anyway. So thank you both, and appreciate all the correspondence you've done back and forth with me. So I did trust, but I also verified. Thank you.
I would just follow up with that it is not our intention to immediately run out and get a bid or get proposals or anything. As part of our MOU with the fire department, we are in the process of evaluating all those costs.
Pat Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. Tony, while you're there, if I may. So let's say someone were to challenge this idea. What would be the process then if someone were to say, well, no, they're not living up to the grant assurances? What would be the process, and who would be the determining board or judge or whatever? And then what would be the ultimate effect of a negative decision?
Sure. It would be a challenge or a request up to the FAA, and they would do an investigation, and then they would make that determination as to whether it violated our assurances or not. If it did violate our grant assurances, they could come back to us to refund some of that grant money that we've already received. They could fine us. They could withhold grants going into the future till we made it right. Typically, the FAA is really good about, if they find something wrong, they say, let's fix it, get it fixed. As long as you get it fixed, then you're typically okay. But there could be a loss of grants, and there, again, like I said, it's between 2.2 and 2.5 million each year.
Would there be any reason for someone to appeal or bring this kind of thing forward to the FAA?
There could be. We have had complaints filed in the past on other issues, so we address anything that comes our way. But I honestly can't answer that as to why, if someone would or wouldn't do that.
And you use the comment or the term a couple times, it's your opinion. Has there been a legal opinion asked for in this as to whether or not, yes, we officially believe this could happen, or is it the opinion of the airport board that this is where they see it?
It is our interpretation of the grant assurances. We have not sought legal counsel specific to this. We certainly could go down that path, but we just are taking a precautionary manner. Like I said, we don't have any issue with the fire department, but on the same time, if the fire department wanted out of this contract, would the city council grant that? So if the city council is willing to allow, if it's coming directly from the fire department saying we don't want to do this anymore, but then on the same time with the airport, is it the same standard being applied, is all we would ask.
Sure, thank you. And may I ask a question of Chief Culberson, Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you again, Chief. Of the $600,000 contract annually, how many employees would we lose if you didn't have this source of revenue?
Hopefully none, but there are 7 employees that are detailed out at the airport for that contract amount.
Have you thought about how you would perhaps replace the revenue or still be able to keep everyone in place?
Yeah, of course. I mean, looking into that, going over the course of time, there's always that risk and a potential of that. So a lot of that has to do with what's happening at that point in time, whether we have a lot of attrition at that time, when this all goes down, if it ever does. So yeah, there's always plans, loose plans, but I can tell you I'm not thinking forward to that degree at this point. So I don't believe that'll happen, not in the near future.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Let's see, John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I want to thank a lot of the people for asking questions that they're asking. And Pat, I was going to ask that same question of whether or not there has been a legal opinion on this. And, you know, really, I'm not comfortable going forward with this until there is a legal opinion on it. I think there should be. I think that question should be asked. You know, if they are really concerned about this, if that is the real underlying issue on this, wouldn't you think that that would be the first question asked? Whether or not there is a possible legal issue with this? So, going forward on this, I'm going to vote no tonight. I would like to see that asked to somebody. I don't know who it would be. I do appreciate, Richie, you reaching out to the FAA. You know, you and I will probably both be long gone before they respond. But, you know, like any other federal government entity, it takes a while. So, but I'm sure that there is an attorney out there that would have that answer. And maybe we should just, or maybe I should take a look into that. But I feel uncomfortable with this because I sat on this council when this ordinance was put in place, and I remember what happened back then. And even though the chief isn't concerned about that happening right now, I could see it happening again in the future. One of the things that really worries me, and I might as well vocalize this in public, one thing that worries me is once this contract goes out, you know, taking bids, well, you get bids from a private company and you use that to negotiate with the fire department. Well, if they're paying people $12, $15 an hour, the fire department isn't going to be able to compete with that. But what kind of service are you going to get? You know, and that's a very, very scary thing. I think most of you know that my grandfather was a fireman. My grandfather almost gave his life saving 7 people on a burning plane in 1970. There's a huge commitment on the fire department. There's a huge commitment that you won't get in the private sector. So I want to thank them for what they do. Like I said, I was sitting here when we went through this before. I don't want to see it happen again. If there's really no legal issues with this ordinance, then really what are we looking at? If that's the true issue behind this that they're worried about, and we don't know the true legal aspects of that, then what are we really looking at here? Anyway, thank you.
Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So if I voted no against this, I'd be voting against adding the 2 people, correct? I mean, because we can't vote separately. It's either yes or no, and that's going to be both of them. Is that
We
correct?
consider that you voted yes on the board composition for first reading last meeting.
Okay.
Tonight, your vote will be on the fire department service.
Okay.
Next council meeting will be second reading on both. Unless this fails, then it'll be just on the one.
Okay, so we're just concentrating on the fire department.
As far as your vote tonight, yep.
Okay.
Just the fire department.
Yes.
Okay. Just, and I had a question, and I'm sure you could answer, Mr. Mayor, but isn't the airport in the municipality of the city?
It is.
It is provided water and sewer by the city?
Provided water, and someday will be provided sewer.
The city will be, right?
The city will provide that
You
service.
think that Meade County or Hill City or somebody's going to pitch in? If they got 35% of the vote on the board with 2 extra people, that's 35% of what we're adding. We're adding 35% of people outside the municipality that can vote. So I would think it would be fair when we make these decisions moving forward that they come to the table with a checkbook with 35%, if that's the way we're looking at this. And going back to Mr. Roberts' thing on the fire department, I was here when we went through that conversation about, yep, we know what your intentions are today. We get that. We know that they have a great relationship, and we're happy about that. We get all that. We understand all that. And as soon as Richie gets word back from the FAA that they have no intentions of taking us to court, then I think we'll be good. So I just want to let everybody know, hypotheticals are tough, but when you see what reality has been, that's how I make my decision, based upon what happened in the past. And I get sometimes we need to get past those things. So I'm gonna support the chief tonight if he thinks this is the right thing to do, and the airport. I'm gonna support you guys on this against my better judgment, which I hope to God is not gonna come back and haunt me. Thank you.
Okay, Darla Drew.
Thank you. Could I have Tony back up here, please? Would you state again that your revenue does not come from taxes from Rapid City? They come from revenue from the airport itself?
That is correct.
So, in other words, if we did have someone from Hill City, Custer, Chadron, whatever, they're not necessarily paying anything by taxes, because neither is Rapid City. They're just part of our service area, and they might want a voice on what's going on at the airport.
What would possibly considered a tax is what is on your ticket, your airline ticket. We do receive what's called a passenger facility charge if you fly out of Rapid City, so it doesn't matter who buys that ticket, and that is a restricted fund that can only be used for eligible capital improvements. So those funds are not used for the day-to-day operations. Our biggest sources of revenue are what we receive off of the parking lot, the paid parking, and then the car rental commissions. So anybody flying into the City are flying into Rapid City Regional Airport that rents a car, we receive 11% of that revenue, plus we also get a customer facility charge. Again, that's a restricted fund that goes towards improvements for the car rental company. It's kind of an amazing place because it really all turns together, and it is funded by the people who use it.
Okay. That's what I needed to hear. And, you know, I'm not going to catastrophize this like somebody's going to come in and take over our airport because we've got 2 votes that are not necessarily in Rapid City. I don't even know if anybody from outside of Rapid City want to serve on this board for sure. But, you know, I'm gonna go ahead and support this tonight. And, you know, I hope that the fire department feels that that is the correct vote as well. So I'm going to say yes. Thank you.
Thank you all for your comments and your questions and any support. And if you have any other questions, you can feel free to contact me anytime.
Laura Armstrong. Sorry, Jason, just knocked you out of the thing.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank Ms. Broom and Deputy, what is your title?
I apologize. Chris Dietz, he is our Director for Operations, Facilities, and Maintenance.
I had the right title
Sorry
there,
about
so
that.
thank
I meant
you.
to introduce him.
Thank you for being here so we can get into the weeds of this and get our questions answered. I'm going to vote for this because most municipalities do work this way, and I, for one, appreciate our 2 entities of Rapid City Fire Department and the airport working together. I know for a fact that their history wasn't always so smooth, and the fact that you are working hard and working together is fantastic. And we know the level of professionalism that we get, like Mr. Roberts suggested. We know what we have. So when we're working together, we know we are the best of the best. To address one of my colleagues' statements, that false equivalency of having somebody from North Dakota in the South Dakota legislature, I just couldn't let that go, because my understanding is to be on this board, they have to be within a 50-mile radius, correct?
I believe that's what the ordinance states. I'd have
So
to
we won't have
double check.
anybody from North Dakota, but the people that usually use our airport will be on the board, I would think. And it doesn't mean that we give this option that somebody from Hill City will definitely get it if we have somebody that applies and they're from Rapid. So those 2 seats could very well go to somebody in Rapid City. So maybe rest assured knowing that. But when Sturgis comes along and our arms are open wide and we're telling people to come, how do you alienate somebody potentially from Sturgis? So I tend to be a little more inclusive, and adding 2 more votes I think is great. And understand having those 2 extra people, if they are from within that 50-mile radius, I don't think it diminishes any kind of integrity towards that board. I have served on that board. I know the people of this board, and they are incredible professionals, and we are very lucky to have our board standing. And having 2 people added to it will, I think, improve it. So keep up the good work, and thank you very much. I yield.
Thank you.
Bill Evans.
Well, my opinion about this particular thing is it's a solution in search of a problem. Everything is working so well, so let's change it. As far as I'm concerned, both of these things are unnecessary. If we find some information, and I've read a lot, I bet I've spent 30 hours reading all these FAA documents and everything and trying to find out how these grant assurances work, and as far as I can tell, there would be absolutely no conflict in using a municipal group at any point with any of them. At least I have been able to find that, and I welcome any kind of input being sent to me that would correct me on that misconception if that's what it is. But I totally disagree with this business of people coming in who are not residents of the town. And now that may change in the future. Sometime in the future, if we go to an airport authority that's granted by the legislature and it becomes a regional thing where they tax the local counties, that's a different thing. But right now, the system works so well, you know, when, like it ain't broke, don't fix it. as far as what I'm looking at this as. And when people get up and say none of the money to run the airport comes from the city of Rapid City and taxpayers don't do it, that may be true in the day-to-day operating budget. But I don't think you're going to find any donations from Sturgis or Hot Springs or Lawrence County or Bellevue that came from those cities toward building the new terminal. So that maybe is something we don't want to say, because I think the taxpayers of Rapid City that use their money to build those things might be slightly offended by that. So let's probably not repeat that one. Thank you.
Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I should point out, you guys are doing an awesome job.
Thank you.
We're doing our due diligence. It has no reflection, by the way, of what we think of the airport, because you guys are crushing it. So good job. A couple of questions for the both of you real quick. Tony, I guess I'll ask you this question. Do you know, I know the board sets the salaries for the airport employees. I see that that's maintained in the ordinance. Who pays for the benefits?
The airport does.
Okay. And so all salaries and benefits come from the airport, or from the
Yes.
board, the operations of the airport?
That's considered operations, yes.
Okay. And you don't leverage any of the city for health insurance or anything like that? You have
No.
a whole separate health insurance? Okay.
Well, we're part of the city's health insurance, and we do follow the city's guidelines as far as the compensation scales and as far as the benefits go, but those are paid for out of our cost centers.
Okay. And who built the airport?
I believe the city of Rapid City did, but that was back in, I believe, 1950, so unfortunately, I don't have the funding information on
Sure,
that one.
yeah. The point, they took the initial risk, you have water to the airport because of the city investment. Obviously, we're hoping for sewer down the road. The city does and will continue to invest in it, still has authority. I'm with Councilman Evans when he talks about if the airport authority changes, by all means, it should be reflected. My analogy of the North Dakota, I don't expect North Dakotans to be on this board. My analogy was that we have to respect the integrity of jurisdictions. It's a principle thing for me more than a pragmatic thing. It's a jurisdictional thing. Just as our nation has borders, you're supposed to respect the borders of our nation. Our state has borders, as does our city, county, and city as well. So they're just borders to respect, and so that's why I do that. I understand the game plan behind it. Obviously, if we want, I'm all for expanding it and doing more. I think we would have to change our authority to do that. But so just to clear that up, and Chief Culberson, if you wouldn't mind, you've stated that you're okay with going out to competitive bid. Would you like the preference of, if you come in competitively, not just on price but on quality, that the fire department gets the preference?
So let's be clear.
All right.
If I felt this was an attack on the department itself, I would defend our department vehemently. And am I okay with going out for competitive bid? No, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about an ordinance that requires the fire department to be out there. I think even in a competitive bid environment, the value added that we provide will far exceed any private vendor that would come in. Our firefighters are well-trained, very good at their job, and way more trained than anybody from the private sector that could come in and do our services. So I want to be clear with that that's where the struggle is. This isn't about an attack on the fire department at this point, because I don't believe that's where we're at. This is about an ordinance requiring the fire department to be out there, period, end of story. And I've said it all along that I don't believe we need an ordinance to prove that we're the best value and the best option out there. How that ordinance is written is up to you folks. That's why you guys get a vote on this. But I am not okay with going for competitive bid, obviously, but because that becomes a whole different animal. But we're talking about the ordinance today.
Okay. Again, I could support on the competitive bid part if they come in competitively on price and quality, which I'm confident they could. If they get the preference, I will support this. If it stands alone, I just don't think I can get over this whole jurisdictional thing and everything else. So with that, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay, at this point, I'm going to virtually hand over the chairmanship to Council President Laura Armstrong. I have an opinion on this. I've spoken at length with Airport Director Patrick Dame. I've also spoken with Chief Culberson about this issue. I was briefed thoroughly in 2015 about the origin of this ordinance. And I'm going to tell you what it boils down to me, as a management issue. We've hired a professional, and I would say a very, very professional and well-educated and well-equipped airport director. And I know from my dealings with the airport, there's 100 ways you can get crossways with the FAA. So this is not it's not a legal issue, it's a funding issue. The FAA gives the airport $2-some million every year just to operate a airport, just because of our rural status and so on. And so that's real money. And so you might remember that this council approved some rate changes not too long ago for the people leasing property out there. That was because the philosophy of the former rate schedule was in conflict with the guidance of the FAA. The FAA, since they're funding it, and I'll tell you, I think they're one of the more responsive federal agencies. So when you're in conflict, or as we saw recently when neighboring property occupant files complaints, they're Johnny on the spot with the follow-up. So Patrick Dame and company, Chris and Tony and the whole crew out there, are aware of those other 99 ways to get crossways with the FAA. And so they're just trying to stay in the good graces of their largest funding source. That's it. And I don't say this as I'm not pointing a finger at anyone and calling anyone names. I don't want to take it that way, but we have a great management team at this airport. And they're not just making sure that the garbage is picked up and that the doors are open on time. They're taking care of that asset with their knowledge and experience and training. And so I would request that you let them do the management. I think it's healthy that the council does its due diligence, but I think you should just give the management team's advice just a little bit more credence than what you might have found in the last couple weeks looking into this issue. We have good people out there. Anyway, my hope is that you would support the ordinance, because it's just Patrick Dame and company trying to take care of the airport. So with that, we have a motion on the floor for approval.
Mr. Mayor,
Yeah.
will you clarify one more time
Yes.
before we vote, that we're voting on the fire department side of this?
I will. I consider, we split this up last time at the last council meeting into two questions. One was the board composition and one was the fire service. And we voted to approve the board composition at that meeting. So that was the first reading. This meeting, we're having the first reading of the second half of that question, and that is the fire service. So whatever happens on this vote then will take care of the whole thing at the following council meeting for the second reading. Bill Evans.
I did, since you brought it up, I just did want to make one comment. Since this is such a huge issue for the airport board, and there's all this great management and everything, I, as a council person, would have appreciated a lot of this documentation and these instances and why this is all necessary coming forward earlier, rather than having to do all the research myself. That's my point. If it is a major thing, then it should be a major topic of discussion. But I haven't seen it be that. It just sort of appeared, and trust us. Well, I'm skeptical of everybody. I don't trust Richie, and I don't trust Greg, and I just kind of funny that way. So I would say, give us all that documentation. Show us, give us the instance of what may come up. And I'm totally willing. I'm not married to this, but like I said, it seems to be working. Stop fiddling with the buttons till you break it. That's my point. So, thank you.
Duly noted. All right, we have a motion on the floor for approval of the fire service portion of this ordinance, and that is to repeal that part of the ordinance. Everyone understand?
A yes vote is to repeal, Mayor?
Or yes vote is to repeal the ordinance and return it the way it was prior to 2015. Okay, let's have a roll call on this item, please. Wait, more clarification. The ordinance amendment on the table is to remove the mandatory requirement for the fire service to be provided by the RCFD. A yes vote will remove that as requested. That's the proposal on the table. Everybody good? I know it's confusing. Sooner we vote on this, sooner it won't be confusing anymore. Roll call, please.
Roberts,
No.
Stroman, Armstrong, Jones,
Yes.
Lehman,
Yes.
Solomon, Evans, Drew,
Yes.
Nordstrom,
Vote twice. Oh, was that me?
yes, Nordstrom,
Yes, 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 yes.
Wyffenbach. Motion passes 8-2.
Okay, thank you, everyone. And now, next council meeting, this ordinance with both components will be on for second reading. So, one more chance to discuss it. All right. Moving on. Item 38, introduction and first reading of ordinance 6478 regarding supplemental appropriation number 1 for 2021. Motion to approve by Drew, second by Nordstrom. All in favor of approval of 38, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 39, introduction and first reading of ordinance 6479, an ordinance to amend provisions in the Rapid City Municipal Code, Chapter 2.40, to authorize the finance officer to perform the duties of the finance director. Motion to approve by Pat Jones, I think, and second by Richie Nordstrom. All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Under working session committee items, another introduction and approval of Rapid Transit System Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan. And we'll go to Darla Drew.
Thank you. I want to thank Chuck Henry for being here tonight. If we're having non-compliance with getting the ADA people on those buses, I think it's important to know that. I don't know anything about the makeup of their board, but I do think that it's important that if we have those services, and they are really accessed a lot by elderly or people with those kinds of problems getting on a bus, maybe it just should be part of the law that when they pull up to a stop, they put down the step. I would guess that's probably what the law is. I don't know that much about it right now, but I thank you for bringing this up because I'd like to know more about that. So I don't know if I'm going to vote for this. Thank you.
Ron Wyffenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Unfortunately, I've got a lot of history on the transit service too, but I do want to say that one of our transit service is probably first in class. I would be skeptical to think that they're not taking care of the handicap thing. That's a thing that they look at all the time. They're constantly on it. The agency safety plan, I have no idea. If they don't have people from the outside, it might be a good idea for them to do that. But I've never had anybody call me with an issue. I mean, when we first started it, Mr. Mayor, there was some trouble with maybe locking down some of the wheelchairs and that stuff. And those guys in the transit department are very, very on top of those. I mean, because that's the clientele they service mostly, are the people that, you know, need the alternative service and the wheelchairs, and they have a service that goes out and just picks people up individually. And so I'm not sure if that, but I could see that Mr. Tech would like to say something. He can use my time.
Okay, thank you. Dale Tech.
Thank you, Mayor. This item that we're talking about tonight is a transit agency safety plan. This more or less is a mandate from the FTA, Federal Transit Administration, that we have this plan, and it is specifically employee-centered. So Mr. Henry notice that there's not a citizen component to this, that's by design. As always, citizen comment, complaints are always welcome at Rapid Transit. We've got the people there are more than happy to talk to our clients, our ridership, and note anything. Anyway, back to this thing in front of us tonight, this agency safety plan. One of the primary purposes of it is to get every single employee in Rapid Transit engaged in safety, and this program mandates that at some point in time, every staff member is going to be part of this safety committee to be able to bring things up, to analyze things, to do a risk assessment, to make decisions about safety for the good of not only the employees there, but also for our riders. So I need to give Megan Gould all kinds of credit. She's the one that's developed this, certainly with guidance from the FTA as well as the state. She does an amazing job of running that division over there. And once again, any public person, their comments are always welcome. So the request tonight is to approve this plan moving forward. If you have any other specific questions, I'll do my best to try to answer them.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Tech, I've also had this similar conversations with Ms. Gould, and she does an excellent job at the whole department, the whole division that she is supervising. And I'm concerned that we're only getting part of the story, and I did have that conversation with Ms. Gould so that I could hear the other portion of the conversation or the rest of the story. And I did get more information from her on that, and I think it would behoove Mr. Henry to take that opportunity to have that conversation with Ms. Gould. So I think she's got some excellent answers to address the concerns that have been brought before us. So I think that's all I've got at this point. Is just that she's doing a fantastic job for what she's got to deal with. And please share that kudos with her. Thank you.
Darla Drew.
Thank you. I guess I misunderstood what this was about. I'm going to admit that. And since this is a safety plan and this is what you're working on with the employees, I've got to go for that. Thank you.
Okay, I think we need a motion on this item, don't we? Motion to approve by Armstrong, second by Solomon. Paul Stroman. Okay. What about motion on the floor for approval of item 40? All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 41. Approve resolution 2021-021, a resolution to write off credit balance utility billing accounts for total amount of $2,077.46. Motion approved by Armstrong. Second by Drew. All in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 42, approve resolution number 2021-022, a resolution to write off uncollectible utility billing accounts for a total amount of $470,000, $465. And we'll go to Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. If I may make a motion to approve this resolution and get a second, retain the floor.
Second by Pat Jones. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Tech, you described as something, and I may be getting off subject here, so I apologize if I'm going astray here. So the write-offs that we're doing, you folks are trying to address those issues with the current issues that are taking place over at the utility building. Do I understand that correctly? We went through an ordinance process and changed our mind and coming back, and now you are working on something.
This is an unrelated issue.
It is?
Yeah.
Okay.
These accounts, this is a thing we do periodically. It's been a number of years. I think 2017 or 2015 rather was the last time this was done. Mr. Reifenbach asked a number of questions at the working session, I think, from an accounting perspective that Director Assumption was able to speak through, but certainly this isn't a direct relation to some of the items we talked about earlier this year when it came to the utility billing discussion.
Thank you. I appreciate the clarification. Just know that I'm concerned about future uncollectibles. So, thank you.
Pat Jones.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Just general comment, we had to write off, if I remember correctly, close to $1 million of ambulance uncollectible fees not too long ago, and now we have almost $500,000 in uncollectible utility accounts. And every time someone in town doesn't pay their bill, the rest of us pay their bill. So if you know people who aren't paying their bill, or if you're someone who isn't paying your bill, you're sticking it to the nice people who live in Rapid City and help pay the bill. So that's pay your bills. Thank you.
Greg Stroman.
Thank you, Mayor. May I ask a question of the Finance Director, please?
Yes. Question for Finance Director Pauline Sumption.
Thank you, Pauline. At the working session, you kind of explained that this was a best practices part of accounting. Could you explain that so we kind of know why this is being done?
Correct. This is one of the best practices for a business, and it's also part of our audit every year. They look at our outstanding accounts and what is realistically expected to be collected. And if you're not realistically expected to collect those revenues, then you should be writing those off. Typically, we do those every year. There was some delay with moving over to a new billing system and trying to figure out the ins and outs on those. Much like that, we'll be coming forward not in too distant of a future to do some write-offs for parking tickets as well. And I want to emphasize that this is a bookkeeping effort, and so the accounts still show that those amounts are due to the city. So if the customer were ever to come back and try to open up another account at a different location, they'd still be required to pay this one first. So it's not that they don't have to ever pay us, it's just that it comes off of our books at the end of the year.
Thank you for that explanation. That's all I have.
Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'm not sure if this is a question for Finance Director or Public Works Director, but I believe we've asked this before, but I'll kind of ask it in a different way. Want to clarify and confirm that the city has tried to use collection agencies for this, and if we have, would it behoove us at all to hire someone for a fraction of this amount to try to collect? Will we have any better results?
Actually, we do. We do engage collection agency all the time. I'm not sure at what interval we do that. It's pretty soon after an account goes delinquent and is closed and the people are gone that we turn it over to collections. And I can't quote any statistics, but our amount of recovery is quite low.
Okay. And in terms of if we've ever thought about hiring anybody, if that would if that would prove successful, or if that would be the same result, what are your thoughts on that?
So from my perspective, we also have engaged a collection agency like for our parking tickets. And part of the reason why we chose to do that route with those, and I would assume it's similar to their utility bills, as those collection companies have access to way more information that we have access to. So even if we were to hire an employee, it's not like we can cross-reference them with a different bad account and they have a new address over there. It's all, you know, pretty limited information that we can gather on our own, where a national corporation has information nationwide.
So by and large, these are not folks who are looking at city services at a different location. These are maybe folks who are not even in the area. Is that essentially the majority of this?
That would be my guess, yes.
Okay. And I can confirm, just having worked in business, I mean, it's an unfortunate part of it. Charge-offs are an unfortunate part of business. Obviously, the more you can collect, the better it is. And obviously, we need to make every effort. But as long as we're making every effort to collect, which is, you know, and finding ways for automated payments and all these sort of things, the better. So technology can help us a great deal in that as well moving forward. Thank you for taking the time. I yield.
Ron Weifenbach?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, but after Mr. Jones's comment, I don't think we're going to have any problems in the future collecting these bills. This is an accumulation over several years, which in my world, a best practice would be to charge these things off after about 180 days to a year. So, I mean, but I'm not sure exactly what happens in the city. But I just want to make a comment about, we were talking about what the city pays for, tax dollars, all that stuff. The water department is an enterprise fund, and anytime that they want to chime in, they can chime in. So it's self-funded, basically. Remember a few years back when we had to increase water rates to secure water rights throughout the city? Rapid City has been very aggressive in claiming water rights throughout the city, which has been spectacular. We've claimed water rights in Pactola. I think that Mr. Tecker, and I don't want to get into that tonight, but could probably explain to anybody who wanted to know how that all works. And we've built a new water plant system, Jackson Springs. We just spent $1 million on putting new membranes in there because the other ones wore out. We knew when we bought the plant and put it together that we were going to have to put new membranes in. We did a good job of setting aside capital improvement funds for that to happen at that time. But there's been conversation about the airport being self-funded, all these things. The water department is a true enterprise fund. Funds in from ratepayers for expenses out, and the margins basically they use for future capital improvement funds or those types of things. And it's the same thing we're working on at the landfill too. So when you see the rate increases come across and stuff like that, and understand that we're working on both ends of that, and we work on both ends of that with the water department. These utility bills are from a long period of time, and it's a cost of doing business. I mean, it's in everybody's business that there's people that don't pay, won't pay, can't pay. Maybe there's some mistakes made along the line. Whatever, they get written off. They don't go away like our finance director had mentioned. They stay there, and they could be futurely collectible if someone came along and so seeing Mr. Jones's threat that they were going to better pay their bill, they might want to pay it. So that in mind, understand that the water department is an enterprise fund. It isn't funded by the general fund. So something to keep in mind as we go forward, moving forward with capital improvements and those types of things. And Mr. Tech has something to say there. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a point of clarification. This isn't just water. It's water, sewer, garbage. So it's three
Water,
enterprise
sewer,
funds.
what's the other one? Water, sewer?
Solid waste.
Solid
garbage.
waste.
So it's three enterprise funds.
Yeah, and I just wanted to point out the fact that this one is one because there will be some other things coming forward that I'll be bringing forward in reference to the water department itself and some of the investments that they made that they should get a return on. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
John Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've seen quite a few of these over the years. This is probably the most discussion we've ever had on one. So I want to ask Pauline a question. Looking at these funds, they go back all the way to 2005, so 15 years. You had said if somebody comes in to collect on, or to open a new service, you can collect the outstanding balance?
That is correct.
But you can't on the ones that I see that are discharged through bankruptcy, correct?
Correct.
So does your new software filter all that out?
There is a way that Connie at the Water Utility Billing Office can flag an account. We just ran across that with one of our customers within the last month. And basically we had three options on how to make sure that we knew it was a bankruptcy, so that way it was off the books completely.
Because I will say one thing after looking through this, and I don't think too many people on the council did look at this from the questions that are being asked, but this is really detailed compared to what we have got in the past. I mean, showing, bankruptcy, showing that it went to collections, and there's many, 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 many on here that went to collections, and just a lot of good information that we've never had before. So anyway, I want to thank you for that, and it looks like our software is doing some good, so thank you very much.
Okay, we have a motion for approval on the floor. All in favor of approving this item, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Community development items, number 43. Oh, wait. Yeah, that's right. A request by Fisk Land Surveying and Consulting Engineers for Ian Estes and Bradley Estes for preliminary subdivision plan for proposed lots A, B, and C of Lot 1 of Ridgeland Heights, number 2 subdivision, generally described as being located at 500 Ridgeland Loop, and the recommendation is to approve with stipulations. John Roberts makes the motion. Jason Solomon with a second. All in favor of, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 44, a request by KTM Design Solutions for Dwayne Pankratz for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed Lot 2 of Block 2 of Hilltop Business Park subdivision, generally described as being located southwest of the intersection of East Anamosa Street and Elkvale Road. Recommendation is to approve with stipulations. Motion by Lehman and a second by Roberts. All in favor of approval with stipulations, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And now we're going to go to Councilmember Pat Jones for a moment of personal privilege.
Thank you very much, Mayor. I appreciate it. Council, you have in front of you the annual report from the Humane Society. It's a very beautiful, well-done brochure. It's an annual report that's kind of disguised as a fundraiser as well. I encourage you to take a look at it. It explains a lot about money that comes in, how it comes in, how it's spent, programs that are going on. And the Board of Directors of the Humane Society, well, they take their work very seriously for one thing. They do tremendous work and they have a great vision for the future. Our Humane Society is very humane and they do a tremendous job. During 2020, there was a tremendous amount of animals adopted. So many, in fact, they ran out of dogs to adopt out several times. People were they were home more, they wanted to get some companion, and so several times the dogs were all out. So they have a lot going on. If you would like to contribute to the Humane Society, there's always a need for that, and I just encourage you to look through the annual report. And if you have any questions, please refer them to me or you can contact the Humane Society. But thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the time tonight.
Okay, thank you. And now moving down to public hearing items, items 45 through 48. There are no speaker requests on these items, so we won't have a public hearing. We'll start under non-consent public hearing items with item 45. Second reading, ordinance 6473, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by KTM Design Solutions for Buffalo East LLC for a rezoning request from Office Commercial District to Medium Density Residential District for property generally described as being located at 7223 Healing Way. Motion to approve by Jones, second by Drew. All in favor of approval of 45, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 46, second reading, ordinance 6474, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by KTM Design Solutions for BH Capital 4 LLC for a rezoning request from General Agricultural District to Medium Density Residential District for property generally described as being located south of North Valley Drive. Motion approved by Drew. Second by Richie Nordstrom. All in favor of approval say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Number 47, second reading and recommendation of ordinance number 6475, an ordinance to create a platting process to facilitate the transfer of certain unplatted property by adding section 16.08.105 to the Rapid City Municipal Code. Motion to approve by Jones, second by Nordstrom. All in favor of approval of 47, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 48, second reading and recommendation of ordinance number 6476, an ordinance to require platted lots in the medium and high-density residential districts abut a public street for a distance of not less than 25 feet by amending subsection 17.12.050E of the Rapid City Municipal Code. Motion approved by Nordstrom. Second by Drew. All in favor of approval, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm informed we have a need for executive session tonight pursuant to South Dakota Codified Law 1-25-2, subsection 1 and subsection 3. May I have a motion? Motion by Lehman to go in executive session. Second by Nordstrom. All in favor, say aye. We are in executive session.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, we have a motion to come out of executive session from Armstrong and a second by Lehman. All in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, we're out of executive session. Is there, let's see. We have one item requiring a motion relating to a formal complaint against Darla Drew. Is there a motion? Pat Jones.
Thank you, Mayor. Motion to do nothing with the complaint. Dismiss the complaint, sorry.
Seconded by Bill Evans. Okay. All in favor of that motion then say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And no further action is required out of executive session. So continuing on with the agenda, item 49 is the bill list, and we'll go to Finance Director Pauline Sumption. No additions to the bill list.
So that, the total is that which is attached at $6,392,675.04.
Motion approved by Solomon, second by someone. John Roberts. All in favor? Are you in the queue? Okay, wait. Pat Jones, hold on.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Briefly, I would like to compliment Finance Director Sumption for the way you ran the Board of Equalization hearings today. Did an excellent job with very little support from some of our other taxing entities in the neighborhood. So thank you very much for doing a great job, keeping it moving. Very, very proud of what you did today. You're a pro. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it.
Okay, motion to approve the bill list. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to adjourn, Lehman and someone? Stroman? All in favor say aye. And we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.